A quiet moment of courage unfolded in the heart of a busy New York City restaurant that stopped everyone in their tracks. 10-year-old Ethan Carter, struggling to walk with the help of leg braces, nervously reached out his hand to Maya Brooks, the restaurant's only black waitress. As the soft piano notes filled the room, Ethan's sudden urge to dance broke the usual formal atmosphere. But before anything else, the sharp voice of the manager sliced through the air. "Sir, control your son." What happened next would change everything. Maya, who had long learned to be invisible in her role, paused only briefly before removing her apron and stepping away from her duties. With a gentle smile, she accepted Ethan's invitation to dance. The sound of metal braces scraping the floor echoed as Ethan took slow, painful steps, but Maya matched his pace without rushing or judging. Whispers rippled through the restaurant, some saying she would be fired, others watching in awe as a powerful bond formed. For Ethan, this was more than just a dance. It was the first time since his accident that he wasn't being led or corrected but was leading with quiet pride. Across the room, Daniel Carter, Ethan's wealthy father, was struck by a memory of his late wife's words. "It's not about perfection, it's about connection." The silence that followed wasn't filled with anger or reprimand but with a profound respect for courage and dignity. This is a story about breaking barriers and finding strength in respect. Maya's bravery and Ethan's leadership remind us that sometimes, the smallest acts can spark the greatest change. The moment was tense and full of unspoken challenges. 10-year-old Ethan Carter's trembling hand still lingered in the air, holding a silent invitation for Maya Brooks, the restaurant's only black waitress. The soft piano melody played on, but the atmosphere had changed entirely. Ethan's father, Daniel Carter, stood nearby, his face a mask of restraint, not daring to intervene. The restaurant manager, Mr. Thompson, had already made his disapproval clear, sharply telling Ethan to sit down. "This isn't a dance hall, and our employees are not here to entertain children," he barked, his voice echoing through the room. Maya remained still, her eyes shifting between the manager, Daniel, and Ethan, who was struggling to keep his balance with the help of his metal leg braces. Over the years, Maya had learned to be invisible to demanding customers like Daniel, who seemed more focused on appearances than humanity. But this time was different. Quietly, she removed her apron and placed it gently on the tray, then looked warmly at Ethan. "I can't dance in this apron," she said, accepting the boy's invitation without hesitation. Ethan's first steps were halting and painful, the metal braces scraping against the polished floor. Every movement a battle. Maya didn't rush him or try to guide his feet. Instead, she matched her pace to his, offering silent support and respect. Nearby diners whispered nervously, "She's risking her job for this." But Daniel stood frozen, captivated by a distant memory of his late wife's words. "It's not about perfection, it's about connection." As Maya followed Ethan's awkward steps, a transformation took place in the boy's eyes. His fear shifted into concentration, his shame into quiet pride. For the first time since the accident, Ethan was no longer being guided or corrected, he was leading. The simple act of allowing him to take control sparked a moment of genuine joy and self-confidence. Mr. Thompson's voice interrupted the scene, cold and stern. "This will not happen again. She will be disciplined." Yet Daniel said nothing. The entire restaurant held its breath, waiting for the billionaire's response, the man who could end Maya's career with a single word. But instead of anger, Daniel's gaze softened as he watched the courage and dignity unfolding before him. Maya led Ethan back to their table after a few steps and, with a gentle smile, said, "Thank you for asking me to dance. It was an honor." Before she could leave, Daniel stopped her, his voice unexpectedly gentle. "What's your full name?" "Maya Brooks, sir," she replied. Daniel handed her a card. "My office. Tomorrow at 10 a.m. The room was silent, the weight of that moment sinking in. As Maya walked away, Ethan called out, "Dad, why did you do that?" Daniel looked at his son and, for the first time in years, truly saw him, not just as the boy he was raising, but as a whole person with hopes and needs long ignored. The morning light streamed through the glass walls of Montgomery Tower as Maya Johnson nervously adjusted her navy blue skirt and clutched her worn purse tighter. She was far out of her usual world, surrounded by luxury and power. A place where she felt invisible despite being invited. The receptionist gave her a scrutinizing look before announcing, "Maya Johnson to see Mr. Montgomery." Maya's heart pounded as she stepped into the elevator, the hum of the building swallowing her quiet resolve. Miss Thompson, a sharply dressed woman in her 40s with an air of authority, greeted Maya and explained that Daniel Montgomery was currently on a conference call. Walking through mirrored corridors lined with curious stares, Maya could sense the whispers. A black woman being escorted through the executive offices wasn't a common sight. Alone in the waiting room, Maya and Thompson exchanged words. "He had you fired, didn't he?" Thompson asked bluntly. Maya nodded, recalling the harsh reality of losing her job because of powerful clients' demands. When Daniel finally entered his sprawling office, overlooking Manhattan like a king surveying his domain, Maya greeted him formally. Daniel acknowledged her with a controlled nod and gestured to a chair, signaling for her to sit. The silence that followed was a calculated tactic, one Maya had learned to read well. It was designed to make her nervous, to break her down. "Tell me about your background," Daniel finally said, his voice measured. Maya held her ground, explaining her degree in child development from NYU and her incomplete master's in special education. She revealed her 3 jobs: the restaurant, a bookstore on weekends, and tutoring when possible. Daniel listened, a flicker of surprise crossing his face. Pulling out a folder, Daniel confessed he had researched her, wanting to understand the woman who had dared to dance with his. "I didn't come here to ask for money," she said firmly. "Then why are you here?" Daniel asked, intrigued. "Because you invited me." Daniel proposed she work for him, not as a waitress, but as a therapeutic companion for Ethan. Maya's gaze hardened. She refused to be bought or diminished based on her race or social class. She refused to be a hired hand pretending to care. Daniel's face reddened. Maya's pride and dignity stood firm, reminding him that Ethan needed space to lead his own life, not more experts managing him. Before leaving, Maya left a card on the table inviting Ethan to Freedom Steps. As she walked away, she passed Thompson, who whispered incredulously, "You just turned down Daniel Montgomery's offer." Maya smiled quietly. "Maybe I'm crazy, but I'd rather be crazy than be property." The following Wednesday, Maya Johnson was working the front desk at Freedom Steps when her sister Zoe hurried over. Breathless with excitement, "There's a Bentley parked outside," Zoe whispered, adjusting her hijab nervously. "And you won't believe who's inside." Maya peered out the window and saw the sleek black car. Ethan was sitting anxiously in the backseat, glancing around with wide eyes. Daniel Montgomery remained behind the wheel, his hands gripping it tightly, as if battling inner turmoil. Zoe doubted Daniel would come inside. Men like him don't usually show up at places like this. But Maya smiled, remembering the determined look in Ethan's eyes during their brief dance at the restaurant. Don't underestimate the power of a determined son. As they watched, the car door swung open. Ethan stepped out slowly, adjusting his braces and equipment, followed by Daniel himself. Despite his casual sweater and pants, Daniel's presence screamed privilege and authority. Maya whispered to Zoe, "I told you he'd come." Zoe stared, asking quietly, "What did you do?" Maya didn't answer, but a spark of confidence shone in her eyes, something even Zoe didn't fully understand. Back in her small Bronx apartment, Maya had a hidden notebook beneath her bed, filled with years of observations about children like Ethan and men like Daniel Montgomery. A collection of notes, research, and a plan that had started with a simple acceptance of a dance invitation. What Daniel didn't realize was that Maya was far more than a waitress. She was a woman on a mission. And his empire of glass towers and endless bank accounts was about to face its greatest challenge. Freedom Steps operated out of an old warehouse, its walls adorned with handmade posters reading, "Your rhythm, your rules, and every move counts." When Daniel and Ethan arrived, children with various mobility aids moved freely to a gentle beat. Maya, wearing the simple program t-shirt, greeted Daniel. Ethan watched in awe as a girl spun gracefully in a wheelchair and a boy with a prosthetic leg executed a series of dance steps. "This looks chaotic," Daniel commented, visibly uncomfortable. "There is structure," Maya replied calmly, "just not the kind you're used to." She turned to Ethan and asked, "Would you like to join in?" Ethan nodded eagerly but glanced nervously at his father. "Go ahead," Daniel said tensely. "I'll be right here." As Maya guided Ethan toward the group, Zoe approached Daniel and offered him a seat. Knowing the first day was always hardest for parents, not the children. Dr. Elaine Mercer entered the studio leaning on an ornate cane, her gray hair braided elegantly, radiating an air of authority. Zoe whispered to Maya, "That's Dr. Mercer, the retired neuroscientist from Harvard specializing in brain plasticity." The moment Dr. Mercer's eyes landed on Daniel Montgomery, she paused, a mix of recognition and disappointment crossing her face. "Mr. Montgomery, you've rejected my research proposals 3 times in the past 2 years," she stated calmly. Daniel replied, caught off guard. "Dr. Mercer, I didn't expect to see you here," she explained. "I oversee the Freedom Steps research program." Daniel frowned. "Research? I thought this was just a community dance class." Maya returned from guiding Ethan, joining the conversation. Freedom Steps is a pilot motor rehabilitation program based on the theory of movement autonomy. She explained patiently, "We combine adaptive dance with neuroscientific principles to encourage neural reconfiguration in children facing motor challenges." Curiosity and skepticism flickered across Daniel's face. "Why do you work as a waitress if you lead such a program?" Maya smiled softly. "Because we lack sufficient funding. And people like you have dismissed us repeatedly." The truth dawned on Daniel as he connected the dots. "You were Dr. Mercer's assistant on those proposals?" Maya nodded. "Co-author." Maya shared her academic journey, an incomplete master's degree, interrupted by family responsibilities, but emphasized that her work was groundbreaking despite the setbacks. "You knew who I was the moment you walked in," Maya said firmly. "And when Ethan chose to get up and dance, I recognized the chance to show, not just tell." Daniel asked, "Was the dance staged?" Maya's answer was honest and simple. "Absolutely not. Ethan chose to stand. I chose to follow." Suddenly, a group of reporters entered, and Daniel's posture stiffened. "What's this?" he asked, suspicion evident in his voice. Maya smiled slightly, signaling part 2 of her plan. Zoe showed Daniel a recently published article. "Revolutionary motor rehabilitation methodology shows promising results." Dr. Mercer added, "We published our initial results today. And we invited the press." Accusations flew as Daniel accused Maya of using his son for a public relations stunt. Maya calmly led him into a side room where photos of dozens of children adorned the walls, each marked with handwritten progress statistics. On the final wall was an empty frame. "What's that?" Daniel asked. "Our future," Maya replied. Daniel murmured, "You orchestrated all of this, the dance, the meeting, the press day." Maya admitted, "I saw an opportunity and took it." Zoe interrupted, "It's Ethan." Rushing back, they found Ethan surrounded by other children, having removed one of his braces and attempting to balance on one support. The room fell silent as everyone watched in awe. Maya whispered, "Watch." Ethan took a deep breath, focused, and took a shaky but complete step on his own. Cheers erupted. Camera flashes brightened the room. And for the first time, Daniel's stoic face revealed unshed tears. "That's why we created Freedom Steps," Maya said softly. "It's not about perfect steps, it's about the first steps on your own." As the months passed, the Freedom Steps program began to grow beyond anyone's expectations. Daniel Montgomery, once skeptical and distant, found himself returning to the community center more often than he ever imagined. Despite his usual reserved demeanor, he attended board meetings, silently observing the progress with a mixture of curiosity and humility. "I never thought I'd have to study neuroplasticity at 55, Daniel confessed quietly to Maya one afternoon, rubbing his tired eyes as they reviewed the latest scientific reports on adaptive movement therapy. The program was proving to be a beacon of hope, not only for Ethan but for dozens of children facing similar challenges. Ethan's strides, once painstaking and tentative, became smoother and more confident. His physical therapist had predicted it would take years before he could remove his braces. Yet with Freedom Steps' unique approach, Ethan was already asking to remove his second brace earlier than expected. Maya smiled as she recounted this to Daniel. "He's progressing faster than any traditional therapy would have suggested," she said proudly, pointing to photos of Ethan balancing on one crutch, steady and determined. Despite this progress, tensions remained. Daniel once asked Maya, "Why didn't you accept my apology sooner?" Her answer was clear and unwavering, because you never really apologized. What you did was more than an apology, it was redirecting resources, changing policies, and funding a program that truly makes a difference. Daniel nodded slowly, acknowledging that her words held more truth than he had expected. The grand opening of the new Freedom Steps Rehabilitation Center was a momentous occasion. The space was far from luxurious, but it was filled with warmth and life. Children with various mobility devices moved freely across the floor, some participating in choreographed routines while others explored their own unique steps. At the center of it all was Ethan, wearing only a lightweight brace on his left leg, confidently leading a small group of children through a sequence of adaptive dance steps. Watching from a distance, Daniel realized that Ethan no longer needed constant assistance. He doesn't need you to hold him anymore, Maya remarked softly. Daniel replied, no, but he still needs me to be around. That difference weighed heavily on both of them. When reporters asked Daniel about his son's remarkable progress and his involvement in the program, Daniel looked at Ethan with pride. I'm proud, he said, not for what he's overcome, but for what he's now creating for others. The biggest lesson he learned? True leadership isn't about always guiding others down the path you think is right. It's about having the courage to follow when someone shows you a better way. A year later, Freedom Steps expanded to 3 more cities. Maya received national recognition for her innovative rehabilitation methods, and Ethan became a youth ambassador for the program, inspiring children everywhere to find their own pace and strength. Daniel's transformation was profound. He learned that true power lies not in control but in knowing when to step back and let others lead. Their story remains a powerful reminder that change often begins when we cross the invisible boundaries that divide us, and that sometimes the greatest lessons come from the most unexpected places. The journey of Freedom Steps was far from easy, but its impact was undeniable. Daniel Montgomery, once a man defined by his business empire and unyielding control, gradually found himself deeply invested in a cause he had initially dismissed. As the months rolled on, his skepticism gave way to genuine commitment, and he began to attend board meetings regularly, watching the progress of the rehabilitation center with a mix of curiosity and awe. I never imagined I'd be diving into neuroplasticity research at this stage in my life, Daniel admitted one afternoon to Maya, who had become not just a colleague but a trusted partner in this mission. Maya smiled, knowing firsthand the transformative power of the program. Freedom Steps was more than just dance therapy. It was a revolutionary approach combining neuroscience and adaptive movement, designed to unlock potential in children with motor disabilities. Ethan, Daniel's son, was at the heart of it all. His improvement was remarkable. Just months before, his physical therapists had doubted he would ever progress beyond basic mobility with braces. Now, with Maya's encouragement and the program's unique philosophy, Ethan was not only walking with less support but also experiencing a newfound confidence that radiated from within. Despite these milestones, the relationship between Daniel and Maya was still complex. One evening, Daniel posed a difficult question. Why didn't you accept my apology earlier? Maya's response was firm yet compassionate. Because what you offered wasn't an apology, it was a start. A chance to make things right. You didn't just need to say sorry, you had to prove it with actions. With real change, Daniel reflected on her words, realizing the depth of what true accountability meant. The grand opening of the new Freedom Steps Rehabilitation Center was a testament to perseverance and hope. The center itself was modest, lacking the glitz and glamour typical of Daniel's corporate world, but it was alive with energy and purpose. Children of all abilities moved freely, some with wheelchairs, others with prosthetics, all united by music and movement. At the center, Ethan stood with a lightweight brace, leading a small group of peers through adaptive dance routines. Watching silently from the sidelines, Daniel felt a surge of pride mixed with humility. He doesn't need me holding him anymore, Maya whispered. No, but he still needs me near, Daniel replied, understanding the subtle difference. When reporters approached Daniel to comment on his son's progress and his role in the program, he looked directly at Ethan and spoke from the heart. What makes me proud isn't just what Ethan has overcome, but the new path he's paving for others. This journey taught me the most important lesson. Leadership isn't about always guiding others down a path you think is right. It's about having the courage to follow when someone shows you a better way. Within a year, Freedom Steps expanded into 3 additional cities, bringing its innovative program to countless families. Maya received a prestigious pediatric rehabilitation award, and Ethan became a youth ambassador, inspiring children everywhere to discover their strength and independence. For Daniel, the transformation was personal and profound. He learned that true power isn't about controlling every step but recognizing when to step back and allow others to lead. Their story became a powerful symbol of hope, courage, and the potential for change when barriers, whether physical or societal, are broken down. This narrative reminds us that sometimes, the most meaningful transformations happen not through grand gestures or wealth, but through simple acts of trust, determination, and willingness to grow. When a billionaire learns from a waitress, when a father follows his son's footsteps, lives can change forever. And that, perhaps, is the greatest step of all.